I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the spiritual journey of Minister Michelli R McGriff-Weaver as she explores the profound impact of the Ten Commandments in a powerful book. It is called Yahudah, Worshippers of Abba Yahuah, the Ten Commandments Versus Psychopath Sinners. Discover how ancient wisdom intersects with modern life challenges, revealing insights into religious events and true life story. This book unpacks the essence of divine laws in today's complex world. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her insightful book. The links are below this interview. Reverend, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
This is a profound book. Tell us what inspired you to explore the Ten Commandments in relation to modern day mental illness, basically, psychopathy.
Well, as you look through history, you can realize that most of our leaders are basically had challenging, dysfunctional behavior. And so by reading the definition of a psychopath, you can realize that being unstable, you have, and most of the governments are dealing with such natures of a psychopath, which is revealing to most of us by we don't understand that what we're dealing with. Sometimes we think that we're dealing with the normal person and this is okay, and we can probably help them mentally or help them spiritually, but you're dealing with someone that's is a person with clear perception of reality but lacking a sense of social and moral obligations, so that personal gain is sought by criminal acts, drug addiction, and sexual perversion without a mark of feeling guilt. And you notice that most of our leaders have been like that.
Yeah.
Even
And
the
that,
president, even some of the presidents today, I hate to say that.
yeah, it's that feeling of no remorse, that feeling of no empathy or sympathy. That is the mark of a true psychopath, right?
Could truly, or as they would say, a mentally ill person.
Yep, absolutely. Can you share a specific real life event that illustrates the clash between divine law and human behavior?
Well, I it was very hard for me to realize that my mother, truly didn't love me as mother should love a child.
Yeah.
And one incident really comes to me in mind, and it was really a hard hit to me when I was 10 years old. That I honestly seen my mother make two outfits, and one was identical to the other. One was blue, one was brown. I wore one, and my niece wore one, and we went up to Lake Mead for an outing.
Mhm.
And as my relatives and I were going on a little hike, we were all talking. I'm happy. We out on a field trip. We out and enjoying one another, and it was just the children, my siblings. My mom and my dad stayed back at the campsite. So as we was walking up and we got to this cliff, I was looking around, and all of a sudden they turned on me, and they saying, "Well, if you're not here, my dad and mom start comparing us to you, and you're goody two shoes, and then maybe if you're not here, we won't be compared to you anymore." So I was pushed over. As I turned to turn away from him, I felt hands in my back, and I was being pushed over.
Hmm.
So as I was pushed down this 10 to 15 cliff, it felt like 3 feet, because I believe the divine stepped in.
Hmm.
Right then, as I was, sprout out at the bottom of the cliff, it looked like I did a herky. You know what a herky looks like.
Yeah,
And
God.
so I looked to my right and I noticed the spirit. And the spirit came to me.
Hmm.
The spirit picked me up. This is the divine that most people encounter in life. And they witness this, and most people don't believe them. But the spirit picked me up. The spirit placed a hand upon my hips. I felt the heat as I was healing. The Spirit took me from the harmful place to where I had fallen and took me back to where I was like about, I would say about 3 to 5 feet away from the campsite where my parents were. And the Spirit instructed me to hobble back to the site. So I hobbled back to the campsite, and my dad, he seen me, he noticed me, he loved me. He picked me up and he carried me and he laid me in the back of our station wagon.
Mm.
Now, as my siblings came back, my parents asked them, "Where is Michelli?" Oh, you know how she wanders off. You know how she likes to go off and be by herself and everything. So I looked up at them and they noticed that I was laying in the car and they wonder, how did she get back before us this fast? Well, the Spirit brought me back. Ruach. Everybody say it's your guardian angel. Everybody say, everybody want to know, was it light? What did it look like? I'm just telling you, it was Ruach, a loving spirit of our Father, a Heavenly Father, seeing that someone needed love and guidance and help in the time of despair, brought me back. Well, it was a silent ride back home.
Mm. I can imagine.
It was a very silent ride back home. Um, my mother didn't want to take me to the doctors because she was trying to say that maybe I'll get through it, I'll push through it. But as it worsened, I had to go. My dad took me to the doctor, and as the doctor, I had to have a ball removed from my leg, and I had to stay stable, to make sure that my hips would heal. And the doctor looked at my mom and he says, "What happened to her?" And she said, "Oh, she's just clumsy. She always falling and hurting herself." And I was like, "No, that's not what happened." And the doctor looked at me and he said, "What's happening?" I didn't want to get my parents in
Mm.
trouble. So I told them I fell.
Yeah.
And the doctor looked at my mother and he says, "If anything else happened to her, I'm taking her from you."
Mm.
And that's all I remember,
Yeah.
dealing with. But that was the
Amazing.
divine. The Father do step in when you're really down and you really need help. So the Father steps in. He loves you. He gives you guidance.
Yeah. It's a wonderful story. I mean, it's a terrible story that you were hurt so badly when you were a child, but it's a wonderful story of your connection with the divine, of course. What do you hope readers take away from your book? What do you hope they learn from it?
Well, I wish they start respecting the Father more, giving him the credit because he do give us each day. I mean, it's blessed with the presence of the sun, the presence of the day. Take that into heart. Learn to love one another. Stop hurting one another. Stop dividing one another. The governments do that every day
Mm.
through division. We need to come together as a whole, as a human race, and help one another and embrace one another and love one another and remove these classes that's put on us as far as rich, poor,
Yeah,
middle class, because we all need help. We all need love. We all need guidance.
absolutely. Absolutely. How important is it for Christians and Jews too? I mean, both believe in the Ten Commandments, um, to live their lives according to the Ten Commandments and incorporate that into their everyday life.
First, you have to stop adding to and taking away from the word. That's what the Father says. Again, you have to turn from your wicked ways and come to Him, and He will bless you.
Mm.
These are the first top two rules and the first two commandments. And He told you, as far as the first two commandments, He's always told us that. He's always told us to put the first two commandments first, and then they can come together to love one another and obey one another and come to love. Instead of thriving to be rich, you can thrive to help one another.
For the folks at home who might not be familiar anymore with the Ten Commandments, what are the first two commandments?
Okay, I will read them to you.
Sure.
Okay, the two great commandments that our Father tells us, he says, is thou shalt love Abba Yahuah with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. The second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
Exactly. If people were to live their lives according to those two commandments or rules, or however you want to phrase it, this world would be a much more peaceful, a much better, a much safer, a more loving place, don't you think?
I think so. They
Yeah.
would learn to love not only human beings, the planet itself, the animals, the plants. You would become more respectful of one another. Even with emotion, you would
Yeah.
think of someone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The name of the book we've been discussing today is Yahudah, Worshippers of Abba Yahuah, the Ten Commandments Versus Psychopath, Sinners. It is a powerful book that'll change the way you live your life. It is written by Minister Michelli R McGriff-Weaver, and it explores the impact of the Ten Commandments. It's a must-read for every household. Minister, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate Spotlight for bringing me forth.
Well, I appreciate your time and happy to have you on. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.